Everybody good in the back?
Remember, right after Coach, we have a women's basketball coach, Charlie Turner-Thorne, here as well. So
Charlie coming in here.
right after you.
Oh, all right. Okay. Gotta get
Raise
some
your
hoop
hand.
games.
If you have a question, we'll get a mic to you. State your name and your affiliate.
Well, obviously, coming off a bye, a lot of work needs to be done. USC week, very talented football team on both sides of the football. And when you watch the tape, it stands out. Had a tough game against Oregon, a very competitive game, and then Oregon kind of pulled away there at the end. But a lot of talent, probably the most talented receivers that we faced as a core thus far this season. Big, physical, can run. Catch a lot of the 50-50 balls. They throw the ball up in the air. Didn't run it as much against Oregon as they probably would have liked. I want to say they had 57 passes, only 25 runs. But with that being said, they're very, very potent offense. Young quarterbacks do a nice job for them. Got a really talented offensive line. The defense is fast, big, and physical. So we'll have our hands full, that's for sure. We got to prepare to understand that they're coming in here off a tough loss, and we had a pretty bad one too. So this will be a game that we mentally and emotionally better be ready to play. Questions?
Coach, Paul Richardson, Sports Game.
Mm-hmm.
How you doing, first off?
Good.
That was the question I was going to ask you. The team, they had a bad loss again, or a tough loss against UCLA.
Mm-hmm.
Week to prepare mentally. How are they this week going into this game?
Well, I think anytime you play an opponent like USC, you understand, how difficult it is with the talent they have. You have to be firing on all cylinders, all three phases. No different than last year's game. It came down to a three-point game, a very competitive football game. And I think for a lot of the young guys, they never played USC. So a lot of our kids are from Los Angeles, as you guys know. So this is kind of a place that they've kind of grown up understanding the history and all the stuff that goes with USC, and they're going to get to play them, so that'll be kind of fun to watch.
Coach Hodrabino, Devil's Digest. Earlier today you said that the game against UCLA, that wasn't us. So in other words, the Bruins took out the Sun Devils out of their element. In your experience, is it always a 50-50 proposition where you shoot yourself in the foot, but also the opponent has something to do with shooting yourself in the foot?
Well, I thought it was a game that emotions got the better of us. I watched the USC-Oregon game, and it was filled with emotion as well. 20 fouls, over 250 yards. Oregon had the better of it. They had 12 for 157. SC had 8 for about 92. So a lot of those young people that are playing on the field played against each other in high school. And it gets to be that, and you don't want the game to become that. I mean, it just slows down the game. It makes things just mushy when fouls are happening all the time. And to be quite honest, we're not good enough to allow an extension of a drive or give a team an extra play or two because of a foul, right? We're just not good enough at this point. And I don't know if any team is, to be quite honest. But we don't want to get into that. We got to stay away from that, and we got into that against UCLA. So we got to stay way, way far from that. That's for sure.
Who's next?
Doug Haller with The Athletic. Herm, after the UCLA game, Rob Likens was really frustrated with your performance in third and short situations. Has there been like a common denominator in those situations that's kind of held you guys back?
Yeah, I think one thing, when you become a little predictable, I think, on third and shorts, people kind of anticipate they're going to put 7 guys in the box. They're going to not allow you to run into the A and the B gaps, so what are you going to do? Either you get the push or they get the push on you. It's a matter of will, basically, when you go for 3rd and 1s or 4th and 1s, if you're going to run the football. Can you get pushed? Or do they get pushed? And if they beat you off the punch, they're in the backfield and you're not going to gain yards. So, it boils down to that. I mean, at the end, it's guy against guy. I mean, that's football. Can I knock a man off a spot when I have to? When it's important. And in the same way defense goes. Can I knock this guy off the spot and penetrate and get into the backfield? The runners are basically 7 yards behind the line of scrimmage. So you hand them the ball, they got to get at least 5 yards before they can get a yard, right? And if you get penetration, it's very difficult. You saw that in the game SC versus Oregon. Oregon tried to run it down there on the 1, and they penetrated, and it was a loss of 3 yards. You know, because they got a big powerful front that can knock you off the ball. And Oregon's, by the way, they're a pretty good football team too. You know, so it just happens if they beat you inside the gap and they get a crease, it's going to be a negative play.
Chris Carbon, Sun Devil Source. Herm, in your career, are there any sort of experiences that you can draw from that relate to where this team seems to be at right now, or the program, or your time and where you're at?
This is kind of Kansas City, Kansas City-esque. We started a bunch of young guys, rookies and first-year players. I used to always say if we were playing in college football, I had the best college football team in America. But the problem is we're playing pro football. And you don't win a lot of games doing that. But difference is here, we have a quarterback. We didn't have a quarterback. We didn't have a starting quarterback in the lineup. We had a young guy that was a backup guy that was a rookie, did everything he could do to play, but we couldn't score any points. It was very difficult. You know, the field became very long. Okay, it wasn't a 100-yard field. It was like long. You know, and that's hard. And the defensive guys played very hard, but eventually, you know, they wear down. And if you get a couple scores, then it becomes one of those games, you know, and that was kind of the same situation. We had a lot of young guys, and we played hard now, but just we couldn't get over the hump, you know, and the quarterback is the key. I mean, he really is. When you have one, you feel like you can build your team around it, and I think we have one. And I think we can build our team around and our program around the guy we have, and you guys have seen him play. And we just got to get some more pieces. We're not there yet. And there's a process to it, and it's hard, and it's tedious, and you got to enjoy the journey through the process. The final result never shows up right away. It just doesn't. You got to go through all this stuff, man, and it's like you sit there and you go, okay. And when I took this job, I realized that. I didn't come into this job blindfolded. I understand exactly what I needed to do, and I think we all understood that and said, hey, look, first year, inherited some good offensive players, some veterans on the line, veteran quarterback, outstanding receiver, had a runner, all that was in place, trying to build a defense. Second year, this year, we said, you know what? We're going to play a lot of young guys because we don't have any other options. I mean, that is our option. There's no like, what do you go get? There's no, this is who you got to play. And you got to live with it and know that at the end, when you look at it, down the road, we're going to be a better football team for it. And I watch the teams in our conference that have done that, and they go through it. You know, and everyone goes to it. You just think, well, it ain't going to happen to us. It's going to happen to us. Key, we got a quarterback. We've identified a quarterback. That is helpful. That makes everybody feel a little bit better. Now we got to build it around him so we can get better.
Coach Paul Richardson again. You talked about USC's wide receivers, and they're fast, they're strong.
Big.
What are the
6'4", 6'2", 6'3", they just, one leaves, another comes out. I said, these guys are big. Big guys.
How, without giving the game plan away, obviously, how do you contain that? And two, how has the team, the defensive backs that you said you talked to them and you walked through with them, what have they been asking you about how to defend big, fast receivers?
It's like anything else. It's the ball that goes down the field. It's the high ball. It's the jump ball. How many can we contest? Because they're going to throw it with tight coverage and figure their guys coming down with the ball. No different than last year when we had Nikhil. Nikhil was covered, but he wasn't covered. Throw it to him. See if he can. That's what I used to tell Manny. I said, if you're stuck, just throw it to one. If you're stuck, everybody's covered. Find one, throw it to him. Just throw it up in there, and we probably got a 70% chance he's going to catch it, right? And so that's what they're going to do. We have to make some plays. They might catch some, but we got to make some too. So it has to be one of those kind of deals, and you have to be aware of that.
Michelle Gardner, Arizona Republic. Coach, what is your assessment on where your offensive line is? We've talked about that and the young guys that are there, but you really haven't had that break loose running game yet.
No, we have not. We've had some signs of it, but we haven't been consistent with it. Utah, we ran it okay against a pretty good defense. We started out running the ball against UCLA. And then lo and behold, I looked up and we were down 30. Well, you can't run it anymore, right? It's very difficult. Now you're playing catch up. And now we're playing these guys. I mean, it's like, okay, we've got some more guys coming in here. Another big front, big athletic guys that can play. So I just think you got to pick and choose what you want to do. You can't knock your head against the brick wall, because then you get into a lot of 3 and outs and you got to punt, and then you get into 3rd and longs. We don't want to be in 3rd and longs, not against this football team, because they can rush you with 4 guys. They play a lot of man-to-man coverage, so they play tight coverage on you, So we want to stay out of those long distances, because that's not good for the quarterback.
Herm, what are some of the keys to keeping players invested in the now, as opposed to thinking about their own futures or next year because you're not going to win a championship or whatever?
Well, I think that's in any time you're in a situation where we're in. It's always the older guys that are like, when they're leaving the program is where am I at? Well, you're part of it. You're part of helping build it, and we've got good character guys here that I truly believe that they're investing in it and they want to win. I think these kids want to win. Nothing like winning. There's no feeling like it at all, especially when you walk in the locker room and you watch the joy of guys winning a football game. We haven't won one in a while, and we got to find a way to win a game again to get that feeling. It's just nothing like it. It's a lot of fun when you win, and when you don't win, it's like, oh boy, it's Groundhog Day, man. And you just got to find a way, and we got to find a way to do that, and that's what we're going to try to do this week.
Coach, Chris
Yes, sir.
Leeson, Devil's Digest. Obviously, after the Utah game, a lot of the talk was about guys controlling their emotions, and then we've kind of come full circle with the UCLA. When the message doesn't seem to be getting through, especially with a young team, is there any part of your approach that you just try to adjust or anything like that?
Well, we kind of went through how many fouls we had all year. We addressed it. And before the Utah game and the UCLA game, we were the least penalized team in the Pac-12. And we addressed it. And that's all you can do. And you got to show them where it hurt the team. It hurts the team. And as I said earlier, we're not good enough to do that. We're just not, period. And I think they understand that, but here again, emotions still come out, and that's, I look at us, and I go, yeah, and all I have to do is worry about us. That's all I coach. I coach our team. I don't coach anybody else's team. But when I watch Oregon and SC, I'm going, wow. I mean, I don't know. One team ranks 5th something in the country. They overcame it, right? But it just 12 penalties, a lot of penalties. I know their coach. He's telling them, hey guys, we can't do this. This is not. And it was just one of those, it happened, and the broadcasters were even talking about it, and it's just. And sometimes you think it's just your team, and you look and you go, man, what is it? What is this, right? I don't know, and it's. You just got to deal with it. You got to keep them calm, because you want them to play. Football is one of those games you play kind of right on the edge, but it's kind of like, hey, don't, and they always catch the second guy. When you're giving somebody business, you better do it first, because the second guy get caught. It happens all the time, and so you can't be the second guy, and don't get involved, and don't get into the trap of it all, and that happens. So, see.
This is the week the official anniversary of college football 150th anniversary.
Wow. Were you around that long?
Pretty much.
I feel like I have been too.
You and me, yeah.
Me and you both.
But
Okay.
what does kind of college football mean to you? Just.
Oh, this is. I can remember sitting at home back then when I was young, and the first thing I watched. They always had Notre Dame highlights. Because you see Notre Dame, like you see, Notre Dame. Notre Dame, okay. And because I'm Catholic, you watch Notre Dame, right? And then Eddie Robinson, Grambling, they used to come on Saturday night. They used to bring the game on. It was re-televised, right? you always got USC because they were pretty good back in those days. You know, they had, let me think about the players they had. You know, go way back to O.J. Simpson and those guys, and Mike Garrett. You know, they had a bunch of players. And so growing up, you kind of knew the names, and you knew the Ohio State, you know, Michigan. That's how I grew up, knowing those schools, right? You heard about those schools, and I was in California, but those are the kind of schools that were always on television. They just had them on because there was only one game. There wasn't 25 channels where you can go get a game. You can get on your phone and get games. It was, you're glued to the television, and you knew who the head coach was, you knew the players, you watched the pageantry of it all, and you've watched kind of how it's unfolded over the years of 150 years. So between that and the NFL games were always on Sundays. So college football was on Saturday. I was a high school player, athlete that played on Fridays. So Saturdays and Sundays, when the game was over college, we used to go in the park and we would emulate, you know, playing in a game. And then on Sundays, NFL game would come on. As soon as the game was over, we'd go to the park and we'd be NFL teams. And that's what you did. And you knew all the players. And so it's kind of unique to be involved in it and watch the history and where it's come from and just the spectacle it is now, where it wasn't back in the days. But it's fun to watch. It really is. Thank you for the question too. That's a good question.
Tim Healy, ASU Radio. Herm, there aren't many programs, excuse me, in the country that'll have one of their alums go into the Hall of Fame. Yours will, and he will be honored on Saturday. How significant is it to your program to see a Jake Plummer go into the Hall of Fame? And I'm wondering if your players catch on to his significance in the history of this program.
Well, I would hope so, and we'll talk about it, and I'll talk about it this week. And Jake has been coming out to some practices, so they know who he is, obviously. And it just says a lot about when you get guys like that that are involved in the program too. You know, he's around it. He comes to practice. I've coached against Jake, obviously, in the National Football League and stuff of that nature. But great human being, great ambassador for ASU football, and in general, just fantastic guy. Couldn't be happier for him. You know, and I think anytime you can, and that's one thing about a lot of young people, they're not history buffs. They're not really history buffs. They're all about the current thing that's happening. They don't understand the past. Well, the past has something to do with the current. You know, you're always standing on somebody else's shoulders, and sometimes you forget that because we're in the now world. I want it now. I don't care what happened in the past. But what happened in the past has a lot to do with what's going to happen in the future. So I think he's a guy that it'll be fun when he gets honored, and I think there'll be a capacity crowd too, so he'll get a nice ovation, deservingly so too.
Anyone else? All right.
Good. Thank you, folks.
Thanks, Coach.
All righty.